All right, hello everybody. Thank you for joining us today. We're going to go ahead and get this started. We do have some other folks who might log on as we get going, but we're going to get started so that we can stay on time. I'm Emily Grego. I'm President and CEO of the San Leandro Chamber of Commerce. We celebrated the first week in May, Small Business Week. And this is one of our workshops that we needed to reschedule. So thank you to everybody that's here today. Glad that you could join us with this rescheduled date. This is great. And we also had to switch all together and make it a virtual event instead of an in-person event. So thank you for all of that, for accommodating us in the schedule and everything else. I want to remind everybody, we do Small Business Week every year. It's always the first week in May, and we provide no-fee workshops for chamber members and non-chamber members. So always come to our calendar the first around, late April, the first week of May, and see what workshops are there for you to take advantage of, because you're more than welcome to. And so with that, I am also going to let everybody know who doesn't know that the San Leandro Chamber of Commerce is celebrating its 100th anniversary. So this Chamber of Commerce has been around working on behalf of the business community for 100 years. And so thank you to all of our members. And for those of you who aren't members, we hope that you will be a member. So just really happy to have you all here. I'm going to get started. Our workshop today is Safeguard What's Yours, Crime Prevention and Safety for Your Business. And we have with us today, Matthew Mayo. Matthew Mayo, hello. Thank you for being here. We have Matt Mayo. He is the owner of Critical Intervention Corp. He is a seasoned expert in community crime prevention with many years of experience. He's passionate about promoting strategies to enhance personal and business safety through problem solving and prevention techniques. And he conducts workshops and training sessions aimed at raising awareness and providing safety education to individuals, businesses, and beyond. So we're really happy that Matt is here with us. He is also he's also part of our community in a couple of different ways. And so we're just really lucky to have Matt here in San Leandro. So Matt, would you like to just say a few things before we get started?
Sure. Thank you, Emily, and appreciate everybody showing up. My name is Matthew Mayo. I think Emily covered that pretty well, but I am the president and CEO of Critical Intervention Corps. I've been designing and training safety and security programs for the last 20 years, locally and abroad, with the federal government on some overseas operations, as well as locally with some of the major corporations that exist here in the Bay Area and nationally. So we've got a lot of information over the years that I love to impart to small businesses. It seems like the large corporations are the only ones that get that good information. So we want to make sure that we have a trickle-down effect and you guys can grow with this information as well. So you guys are in the right place today. I'll answer as many questions as possible. And if you guys see some value in it, I'm always available. So you guys can reach out to me and we'll leave you some information so everybody knows how to contact me should they want a private consultation or training specific to their business or staff. So I'm available for that all the time.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Matt. So just to describe to you folks a little bit about how we're going to handle this next hour. If you can, introduce yourself in the chat. And if you've got any questions, put your questions in the chat. Matt and I are going to have a conversation. I've got a slew of questions myself that I want to ask him. Once we have gotten past that, we'll look at the questions in the chat and we'll get some of those other things answered for you. So Matt, to get started, here is my first question. So, we hear a lot about this word. We've heard it a lot in the last 3 years. We hear the word de-escalation. We hear about it when it comes to security and safety and policing. And so I want to know, what does de-escalation mean? And what are some examples of how to use de-escalate what and when are some examples of how to use de-escalation techniques?
All right, so that's a mouthful. De-escalation is kind of a broad term, but the way we mean it in the industry is going to be direct interaction, right? In an escalating situation, it's going to be the action that an individual takes to actively assist in de-escalating that person, bringing them back down to a tenable position. Um, Perfect example would be, someone that is being turned away. Let's say that they're at a coffee shop and their card doesn't work, and they start to escalate, becoming angry, blaming it on the machinery. De-escalation technique, not even a technique, just someone who was attempting to de-escalate that situation might, okay, you know what? Next time, just make sure you remember your card or something, and they'll hand them a cup of coffee just to bring the situation to a peaceful ending. That's a de-escalation. The way we mean it or the way we teach it here with Critical Intervention Corps is we describe it as an act of stopping, delaying, or redirecting an escalating situation. And we do that by honing our skills of observation and perceiving that stress early on so that we can intervene, have a meaningful intervention, and start to de-escalate those situations using measures that we've designed.
Okay, so when I can think of a couple here that we've kind of experienced just at the office. There are times when folks are wanting to come into our office for information, and they've been here for quite some time, and maybe sometimes they're just really being chatty, and as much as we want to chat, we just don't have lots and lots and lots of time to chat with them. And so we want to maybe just get them to move on. What is that a de-escalation? Is that some sort of is there some sort of a tactic that we can use to move them on without making them angry or feeling agitated?
Sure, and that's a situation you kind of have to feel out, because if someone's in a pretty good mood and they're there specifically to socialize when you don't have time, then it's not a situation that you need to de-escalate, but it is one that you need to navigate carefully so that it doesn't escalate to begin with. So I would say in that situation, we just want to, be as cordial as possible, and, maybe start, just walking towards the door while you talk to them to kind of get them to follow you in order to keep the conversation going. And then once, we're moving, once everybody's talking, then you kind of bring up casually how, you have to get back to work, or, it was very nice speaking to you. And, people tend to get the picture on the way out. But you have to get them moving, because if they're sedentary and you're still talking or they're still talking, it's hard to get them up.
Yeah. I think another example that maybe you could help us out with is also just it's tough when we've just got a lot of folks living in San Leandro who might just be taking a rest in front of your business, or maybe you came in the morning and they were just sleeping out in front of the business. And
right.
So what are some basic techniques that a small business owner might be able to just move and de-escalate if they wake up angry or get upset or something like that?
Sure. So the way that we teach de-escalation in 4 parts. It's shown as AEAD, and we call it AID, like rendering first aid or rendering aid. That first A is approach. So you want to be very careful how you approach someone. We're in a situation where they're sleeping or they're not looking directly at you. You don't want to surprise them, because that's going to raise that situation to the next level, right? We don't want to surprise anyone. Several things go into that. Your reaction distance. You don't want to get too close to them to start that conversation. You kind of want to, if they're in the middle of some type of outburst, maybe we wait for them to kind of take a breath and come down, wait for them to finish their sentence before we make that approach. So timing comes into play there. And then remove stressors or targets. So if they're already engaged with someone that they're targeting with that, that anger, or they're already yelling at someone, maybe call them away from that person, or have that person leave the situation so that you can start a new conversation which would kind of force them to then escalate again with you. And you have some time before it gets to that point to practice some active listening skills, let them finish their spiel, and then explain, how you can better assist them if they were actually able to, if you're actually able to move freely into your business and things of that nature. The E is engaging, how you engage. And we kind of played into that a little bit when we talked about our active listening, being empathetic and non-judgmental, respect their personal space, and keep that even tone. Additionally, as well as you may handle the situation, they may become aggravated or start challenging you using baiting statements or baiting questions like, well, what are you going to do if I don't move? Or,
Right. Yeah.
make me move.
Yeah.
And to those, we don't even respond to those. We act like those don't exist. We don't key in on them at all. And we just keep having our conversation with them. And the thing is, it's a psychological thing. When you just completely ignore that part of the conversation, they stop.
Yeah.
And
That's
we're
a good
trying
thing.
to.
Yeah, that's good advice. That's really good advice. Just pretend they didn't
Absolutely.
say that and just keep on with what your message is to them.
Mhm. That second A is assess. So all the time we're assessing that conversation or assessing that person. So we want to see exactly what their end goal is. There's several types of situations that would cause someone to escalate. Anger being one of the most common. Obviously, people can lose their temper over anything, but fear as well. Frustration. They could just be attempting to intimidate, or they could be goal seeking. They don't like hearing no, or they don't like being given instructions. So now they're going to just see who has the stronger resolve. That's what we call goal seeking. So we want to feel out and see exactly which one of those are, which one of those situations most closely resembles the situation that we're in. And then we have some preset responses that we go into depending on what we're dealing with and how we handle it. Quite a conversation. That's why we actually do a training course completely for de-escalation. That is available if anybody is interested in that as well. We go into a little bit more depth and how we actually de-escalate each one of those contributing factors. So it's not just a one size fits all. You really have to pay attention to the situation and kind of flow with how it moves. Someone could start out angry, and then just your interaction could cause some type of fear response that now you have to adjust your approach and use that to diffuse the new situation.
Yeah, it sounds like that's something that, like, in small businesses, the staff and employees should probably role play on each other and kind of get used to saying certain things and using some of those techniques. Like,
Absolutely. That's one of those things that you really want to get used to. And I know everybody, when you hear that in a corporate setting, it's like, oh, nobody wants to do the role play segment. Just give us the information, we'll take notes. But it's invaluable, guys. We actually, in our de-escalation, we have the built-in interactive role-playing situations so that you want to get the feel for exactly what is driving the behavior so that you can effectively de-escalate the situation.
yeah, well, that's good. Well, thank you. That's question number one. Question number two that I have for you is, I know you talk a lot about personal safety. And so
Yes.
my question to you, does personal safety mean a person needs to know basic self-defense techniques? If not, or if it is, explain maybe the differences between personal safety and self-defense.
Okay. So practicing or understanding some type of, basics of self-defense could be a contributor to your personal safety, but they are vastly different things. I like to compare it to personal safety is more preventative, while learning self-defense would be something that's reactionary, right? We want to be able to react to that situation. Ideally, we'd rather not have the situation happen at all, right? So with personal safety, we do things like that 360 degrees of awareness, right? We're taking our faces out of our phones, being cognizant of what's going on around us. We're keeping our hands free. If we're on the street and, moving from point A to point B, we're wearing proper footwear and things of that nature. And I like to compare that to try to picture a prison, right? It's very intimidating from the outside. No criminals are ever trying to break into a prison. It doesn't matter what's in there. It's an intimidating, it's a very daunting task. That's how you present when you are practicing those personal safety techniques that I just described. Nobody's going to challenge that, or they're less likely to challenge that. And, knowing self-defense, I would say, is more like living in a glass house with a great alarm system, right?
Yeah.
It's a glass house. Nobody knows about the alarm. Nobody knows you know karate. So they're going to test it over and over again because it's an attractive target. Now, they may not succeed because, you're a black belt or you have that alarm, but it's always going to be a situation where you find out after the fact, right? You're still being confronted with that situation, and we want to avoid it altogether.
Okay, so I know, so that's good. So personal safety is more preventative and self-defense
Exactly.
is more reactionary. And self-defense is something that takes a lot of physical training for you to learn different techniques and whatnot.
Right. And it doesn't change your outward appearance to a criminal or someone who would, be looking for an opportunity at all.
Right.
So you want to make sure that you change your outward appearance so that you never look like the target in the first place.
Okay.
Think the prison versus the glass house. That's a awesome way to think about it when you guys are referencing this.
So one of the things, well, I know because I've talked with you before about this, and you're like, Emily, have your keys ready when you walk into the parking garage. Don't be trifling through your purse while you're trying to get into your car, right?
Right.
And then the one thing that I've done, and I shared with you, is I'll get in my car and I sit and I look at my phone to read my last text messages and stuff. So tell everybody what you have said.
So that is a no-no. We actually, in our training, we make sure to mention that just because it's just such a common location where people let their guard down, right? You'll have these people that are practicing great. They have great habits on their way to where they're going. And then when you get in your vehicle and you close the door, and maybe you have the presence of mind to lock the door, but the assumption is, okay, I'm safe. But you're not home yet, right? You're still completely surrounded 360 degrees of the unknown. And a lot of the carjackings, the robberies, burglaries, and things of that nature happen right at that time. You're stationary, you're not moving at all. You're in a situation where you're either going to have to back out of a parking spot, which is, that's not something you do quickly or in a hurry. You're going to have to maneuver or do something to extricate yourself from that situation. That's going to take a lot more time than say it would have while you were walking or if you were driving in the street. So just getting in your car in a parking lot and locking the door, you're not safe, guys. You want to get going, get moving, and get to a familiar location where you actually have that safety and that comfort level to start scrolling and going through your phone.
Yeah. I think that was great advice, because like I said, I told you I've done that, and you said, Emily, get moving, get driving, get going, so that you're not even more of a target. So I think that's great advice.
Yeah, we had a great response with that. We did Facebook recently, and we must have had 100 women that were like, really, we're not safe in our car. I'm like, no, it's one of those situations where you have that feeling because you're in your space and you've locked the door, but there's still a lot going on around you that you need to be cognizant of.
Yeah, your window could still be broken whether or not you're in it or not.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, well, that's great. So a couple of takeaways for me is have your keys ready, get in your car and get moving, and just, look like you've got a purpose when you're out there walking. You're not a target. You're capable, and you're not inviting anybody to come and mess with you.
Absolutely. Just paying attention is going to do half the work for you, right? People on the street are looking for opportunity. And if you don't present that opportunity, if you're paying attention, if you don't have your phone out, if you're not, walking with, a purse in one hand, you don't give that opportunity. There's going to be a softer target or an easier target out there. And, criminals love to hit the easy button, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Thank you for that. So my next question, just moving on down,
Mhm.
is here in San Leandro, it's a large community. We are a city, basically, and we've got different areas of town. So not all areas of the community are the same. Some are really busy, like our downtown area, with lots of people walking around, and there's lots of activity. And then there's other areas like the industrial area where it's a little bit darker. There's not a lot of walking around because most people are inside of their warehouse or their facility. So when you think about safety and you think about that, and there's warehouses that are running on a 24/7 schedule, so there's just not a lot of people out, but their cars are out there. What
Right.
are some techniques that you could impart on us for those areas of town, not just for the safety of the employees, but of their property and their cars,
Right.
and just what can we do in those areas that make everybody feel safe?
All right. So industrial areas have always presented a little bit more of a problem. They're kind of sitting on the outside of the community, so there's no one directly across the street watching, or the neighbors that are close enough to present some type of obstacle and not being seen. So those are prime candidates for CPTED. That's crime prevention through environmental design. Uh, Things like fencing, the total area of your property. You don't just want to put, a fence between, say, the rail yard behind your building and your building. You want to make sure that your location is completely blocked off by the fencing that you provide. But not only that, you want ample lighting, not to be confused with lighting. You want to make sure that you have ample lighting. A lot of people will put, a couple of street lights down the middle of the center lane in a parking lot, but that does nothing for the cars that are, lining the fence to make the most of that parking space. We want to make sure that you have ample light, that so that people there's nowhere to hide. We want to take away all of those opportunities. Cameras with overlapping fields of view. Uh, Relatively easy to accomplish with relatively cheap cameras as well. They don't need to be HD TV cameras that are going to cost you an arm and a leg. They just need to be cameras that can be referenced. Let's see, is there somebody coming off of the train yard that's behind the building? Are there people that are wandering towards the fence from the street? Those cameras are what's going to give you the look of your area, that kind of bird's eye view when you're not out there. And that's when things are happening, right? They wait for the absence of people to make those moves. So you really want to have eyes once once all those people are inside. Additionally, we like to clear cut the fence line. So, if you have trees or bushes that present, places for people to hide along the fence line, we want to take those away. So it's not just setting up a fence. We want to make sure that we have a clear view of everything going on outside that fence, so that we can watch our belongings. Signage as well, no trespassing signs. Let them know that you have video surveillance, right? Think of the prison and the glass house, right? We want to prevent the situation. So just having cameras that may be out of view or not perceivable to, someone on foot might not be enough. They're still going to try, because they think they have an opportunity there. But if you let them know up front, hey, this camera is there, this lot is monitored by, 24-hour surveillance, that's that prison feeling, right? Now it becomes a little bit more daunting a task to try and cross those boundaries. Violators will be prosecuted. Don't underestimate prosecution. A lot of people think that these little petty crimes that they commit, go unpunished, which is why, and in a lot of cities in California, I think we can all agree that, sometimes it's not as stiff as punishment as we would like, but we definitely want to make sure that if and when we are catching these situations, that they are being prosecuted every time. No free crimes in our cities. That's what, people build on. That's why they get so brazen with the activity that we start to see here. And then I would say internal education campaign for the staff. Make sure that they're clearing out their vehicles of any items that would be attractive to somebody wandering through, right? Make sure that they remember to lock their doors and roll up their windows and things of that nature when they're coming from or heading out to their vehicles.
Yeah, and probably maybe maybe they can help walk each other out to their cars, right?
Absolutely. So from a safety standpoint, I was just speaking from a security standpoint. But from a safety standpoint, absolutely. The buddy system. If you have people that get off as a group, which is very common with shift work, wait for the group. Like walk out together. Everybody together presents a much harder target that will likely not be challenged at all.
Yeah, I like what you said. I mean, like, at least if you're putting up like these are our boundaries, like you can't trespass, we do have surveillance, and we will
Right.
prosecute. They may they may still commit the crime, but then at least you've said, hey, we've told you everything, so we're definitely
Right.
be reviewing those cameras, and we're definitely going to turn this into the police. So
Right. The follow through is everything. We really want to make sure that we're actually doing our due diligence to, push those charges through. California, I should say this as well. The state of California is very particular in their trespassing laws. So if you have a regular trespasser or even a single time trespasser, he cannot be trespassed unless your boundaries are clearly marked and that signage is present. So that's something that you guys very, very much want to consider when you have a situation where you may have to call the police or do a stay away order or even try to press those charges that we were talking about. If you don't have those signs, they're not trespassing. If you don't have those boundaries clearly marked, they're not trespassing. So keep that in mind. It's a relatively cheap thing to do. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, I know there's nothing cheap when we're talking business, but it's manageable and it's easy to accomplish. It's not a huge time suck.
yeah, wow, that's important. I didn't know that. I
Yeah,
didn't know that. So that's really that's important. So we're gonna have to definitely make sure that we share and continue to share that with our industrial area, because we've heard a lot from our businesses in those
right,
areas, and the unfortunate part is, like, the catalytic converters or the smash and grabs, that are happening. But
right,
that follow through on the business end with the signage, and you've been warned, and we're now going to prosecute, like they've been told. And I mean, we've got to do something, because the brazenness is just, it's terrible at this point.
right. It's definitely gotten out of hand in the last few years, and it's not just a California problem. It's coast to coast.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm.
So we have another question that I've heard you speak about before. So I want you to talk a little bit more about this, about building a network to keep your business safe. So if you could talk to us a little bit about that. It's essentially what you're talking about is maybe a neighborhood watch program for a business community. So
Right.
my question is, what should be done to encourage a business neighborhood watch, and what types of information should be shared amongst the businesses?
Right. So if you're just starting out and trying to get people on board with, this network situation, then I would say the thing that really gets people on board is going to be seeing their situation, seeing other people experiencing their same situation. Right. So we want to make sure that we're not selective about what the information that we share. I'm not saying give away trade secrets or anything like that, but we want to share everything. I mean, from suspicious vehicles that you've taken notice of to contractors that do poor work, right? We want to make sure that we engage them on every level that they might be interested in to, get them to join. I always tell people, hey, when you're pricing your cameras or your fencing, talk to that contractor. Hey, if I bring 4 people with me locally in that same area, how much of a discount could we all get? Right now, if you take that to a meeting or you publicize that in a little newsletter and take it to a business that may not be participating now, and they see that, hey, I can save 20% on this fencing I'm going to need anyway, just by participating in this network, you know, people tend to come around there.
Have you seen some success with the networking in different business communities?
Absolutely. So you can tell the communities that are very tight knit, um, especially, so we can take San Leandro, for example. Between Parrott and Wilson, it seems like there are a lot of small businesses that are very familiar with each other. So when I've got and this is a real example, I'm responding to a broken glass door and I can't get a hold of that owner at all. But directly across the street, I've got a barber shop that's got a good cell phone number for him. He's already calling him. He's handed me the phone so I could speak to the owner that, I previously only had an office number for. He knows that the guy has been, I guess he was home. He had some type of surgery. He hasn't been in the office, but, they did that themselves. They were able to help me solve a problem for them by participating in a network that, their neighbors could assist in getting them that information, assist in communicating with us for them, and just helping us solve that problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's really great. And then I know you were, I like that idea, like suspicious vehicles. I've seen this, get kind of a network of emails going around, or just maybe go to your neighbors, right? And just say, hey, I've noticed this, gray car that's been circling at this time for the last,
Right.
Have you guys noticed it?
So the biggest thing is going to be ease of interaction, right? We don't want, it doesn't have to be a weekly meeting where everybody has to show up, right? We want to make it easy for them. So if you think about apps like Nextdoor and how quickly they took off, that's a network. That's people talking to each other and sharing information that, honestly, that community was starved for. People want that information. They want to be able to participate and give that information because they're seeing the same things 9 times out of 10, but they're wondering who's looking, who's going to care, who do they tell? And if they can share that information directly to you or directly with peers, then they're going to. You get a lot of participation with that. And that newsletter or online chat board or the emails back and forth, those things are invaluable. Those things really streamline the process, and you're much more likely to get a lot more participation.
Yeah, that's great. I like what you said. It's the ease of interaction. I mean, business people are like, please, I cannot go to this. I can't go to a meeting. I'm already over.
Right.
I'm already dealing with X, Y, and Z. Like, now you want me to go to a meeting? But if it was easy to just share some information and check in with one another, then they would certainly do it.
Right.
Yeah.
Having a destination to send it to is awesome. You don't want to call the police and say, hey, there's a suspicious vehicle that's just been, I've seen it 4 times today, right? That's not going to be something that's investigatable, right? That's not something that's going to get the police to come down there and check out. But you can't share that information with your neighbors. Maybe they've seen it too, right? Now you're not crazy. Now you've got everybody interested. Now everybody's watching for that vehicle. And that becomes much more of a hard target area, especially for that vehicle that's now, gained that notoriety throughout
Right.
the network.
Yeah, or maybe that driver is new to a job, or dropping somebody off or picking them up, and you'd never seen it, and here you are, like, oh my God, that's so.
That actually happened
Right?
to me when I was buying my condo in Hayward. I like to go to the neighborhood and kind of sit at night and kind of see how much activity is going on after 10 o'clock.
Mhm.
So you can get a feel for the neighborhood. And I actually saw myself on Nextdoor after I made the purchase. So I had to let all the neighbors know that, they're going to see that car quite a bit. And
Yeah, you're like, I live here. I reside
right.
here. I'm new, but I actually.
But that's good because they're paying attention and they were sharing that information. And it's good to see. I felt a lot more comfortable in the area.
Yeah.
honestly.
Yeah, no, I like that. One of the tools that we use here at Chamber is an application called Slack, and you can just
Yes,
create groups within it and have people, come into, and if you have a group for, your safety watch group, then you could Slack a message,
right.
pretty easily. So if anybody hasn't used Slack, not here trying to sell Slack, but it does seem pretty useful. As you can create different groups. So that might be one way for the ease of interaction. Uh,
Absolutely.
kind of segueing with something that you said about, when will, police come to a scene, and, you always hear somebody say, well, I called and they didn't answer, and, blah,
Right.
blah, blah. Can you talk to us a little bit more about policing priorities so that we can better understand when they're going to show up, and or what maybe we can expect when we're calling the police, and when should we call the police?
Absolutely. So this is a big one that a lot of people kind of take issue with. It's a common misconception that the police only want to respond to major incidents. They don't want to be bothered with the small quality of life incidents that 9 out of 10 small businesses are going to be calling about: shoplifting, trespassing, loitering, somebody smoking directly in front of their doors. Those are quality of life issues that aren't technically crimes, that the police are still duty bound to respond to, but there are priorities that have to come before those. And I'm going to explain those priorities right now. So level 0 call, that is their highest level call. Um, Level 0 is the most urgent call that they're going to take. That's imminent loss of life or major damage to property. The crime is happening right now. It's active. The victim and the subject, the person committing the crime, are still present on the scene. So that's where you're going to see those Alameda County sheriffs or San Leandro PD with the lights and sirens, and they're doing 80 down the street. All right. That's what they're going to. Those are the only calls that they're allowed to do that for.
Okay.
Then you have a level 1. A lot of the same situations. With that level 0, they're gonna be responding to anything that's active or there's potential loss of life. Same thing with the level 1. Those are urgent calls, but those situations have just happened recently. It's not active. The subject who committed those crimes may or may not still be in the area. The victim is definitely still in the area, and same type of crimes. So officers have a little bit of wiggle room how they respond to those calls. They may go lights and sirens, they may not. Either way, you're going to get an urgent response. That's going to be, unless there's a level 0 happening right now, those officers are going to be coming directly to you. A level 2, that's going to be no major threats there, right? That's no sirens are allowed. They have to obey all traffic laws and rules to get to you. Those situations are going to be things like vehicle break-in, or the damage is already done. There's no additional threat for more damage, right?
Okay.
So that's what those are. Also urgent, but all of those calls can be downgraded if a level 1 or a level 0 comes in, which happens quite a bit, guys, which is why people start to think that the officers don't respond to those less serious crimes. Level 3 is the lowest level of crime, which are the ones that we just talked about, the loitering, the trespassing, smoking, things of that nature that are serious to us because we're losing money, we're losing business. But for officers, they have to prioritize those calls very low in the grand scheme of their priorities. It's just necessity. Any one of those calls, any one of those level 3 calls will be bypassed temporarily so that they can respond to a level 2, a level 1, or a level 0, which puts a lot of calls in front of you guys repeatedly. So they could clear a level 0 and see a level 3 that's been sitting there for 2 hours waiting to be responded to. But if they get another level 1, it's going to be another hour, guys. That's just how it works. So we want to make sure that we equip ourselves with some tools to effectively de-escalate situations that are within our control, and understand this, the priorities of the police.
Yeah.
What are they going to respond to? How long are they likely going to take? Is this
Yeah.
something that I can handle by myself, or is it something that I actually need them to respond to?
Yeah,
You know?
I
So,
like understanding that, Matt, because it could be that maybe you called once for loitering and they came right away, and it could have
right.
just been that
There's
that's
nothing
because
else going
there
on.
was nothing else before it, and now
Mhm.
you call again and they didn't come. So I think understanding those expectations is really important, and because we know here in our own community, our police department, for all of their good work, you know, we're still
Right.
stretched and still hiring more officers and whatnot. So just knowing what those expectations are, I think, and that's why I think that this workshop and this conversation is so valuable, because we need to understand all of that as we are in this situation. You know,
Right.
we're all here and they're here to also help us, but we need whatever we can do for ourselves, we need to do the best that we can.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah.
So I noticed that you did ask, and everybody would love to have a solid answer. When do we call the police?
Okay.
But that presents a lot of liability issues to say when you can call the police. So the only thing that we can say as far as when to call the police are here for your safety, right? To give you that feeling, to, to establish that reality. Honestly, if you're in a situation that you feel you're not equipped to handle, whatever that situation may be, even if it is just someone smoking in front of your door, nobody can give you your comfort level, right? So
Mhm.
if it's a situation where you're uncomfortable, you don't feel safe, then I would tell you to call the police. Now, I can't tell you where that's going to fall on their priorities, but your priority is keeping yourself safe.
Right.
So anytime that you don't feel safe, I want to encourage you to reach out to people whose job it is to give you that feeling, right? So don't be hesitant about that. The priorities that I gave you are not at all to scare anybody away from calling. It's just to give you that information so you understand that they're not avoiding your call. They're not, um, not showing up. They're just having to prioritize other calls as they come in.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, now I understand.
Mhm.
You're like, I'm certainly not going to tell you when to call them and when not to call them.
Yeah.
We do have a question here from one of our guests, and it says, what are some of the best practices for our security officers while on patrols and on duty? If you had to
Okay.
a few
So
practices.
are you asking from a client point of view? I guess would be my question. Like, what should we be looking for, our security to provide for us or be doing on a regular basis, or um, even from the security point of view? We want to make sure from the client view, yes. All right. So we just want to make sure that they are constantly moving, right? It doesn't have to be, perpetual motion, but they need to be doing regular patrols. Sitting in one place and securing a large location is not reality. If you are going to pay money for security, they need to be in motion and securing the entirety of the property, not just your front desk. So make sure that that is something that they are prepared to provide. They need to change those patrols because as much as they're looking for those potential criminals or opportunists, those opportunists are looking for them as well. And if you're passing by the same location at 3 o'clock every day, they're going to know that as soon as you're gone, you're not going to be back for another half an hour, which is a lot of time to work. It only takes 5 minutes for a skilled person to hop under a car and take a catalytic converter, or sneak into a fire exit or something of that nature. So we want to make sure that they're mixing up their patrols. So if somebody's watching, okay, at 2:15 this guy's passing the parking garage, but the next day at 2:15 I see him peeking out of a fire exit, in the back of the building. We want to make sure that they're not just doing that same loop. That's just a pattern that's really easy to defeat.
That's good. That's great advice.
Absolutely.
One of our
But
guests, for that ease of interaction for business communities to be able to share information. They use WeChat. So I haven't heard of WeChat, but if anybody's using WeChat, that's another, there's Slack, there's WeChat, of course, there's always email, but some of these other applications are a little bit easier to use because you can create groups really easily.
Okay.
So Matt, one last question I have for you is,
Mhm.
we see all the time now, because we see it on our social media and everything else, when there's a crime being committed, everybody tends to pull out their phone and want to record it. I'm interested in what are your thoughts about that? I mean, what should somebody else, I mean,
So
is it good? Is it bad? Should we just like call 911 or all of the above? I'm just interested what your thoughts are on it.
So that's kind of a gift and a curse. The technology nowadays, people are more interested in recording the event than reporting the event. And you don't want to get caught up in that. I know a lot of people, it's just, first, or second nature to pull out their cell phone and start recording, which is great, but that's not helping anyone. What that's doing is, that's going to be that reactionary, that follow-up situation. Okay, now I have a description of this person that I may not have remembered before that is admissible in court, that may help with the follow-up, everything that comes after the situation. But we want to make sure, I mean, if someone's being attacked or robbed, there's a potential for injury there, right? So yeah, definitely pay attention while keeping yourself safe. But I would say before you start rolling, before you start recording the situation, make sure that we're calling for appropriate help, whether that be the security in your building, whether it be the police, whether it be, backup, just additional people from the street. You want to get more eyes on a situation than less. And don't just get caught up looking at it or filming it. We want to make sure that we've started the process to bring a resolution to whatever it is that's happening there.
Yeah. Well, this has been great. Like I said, Matt, we're super lucky to have you in and around San Leandro. You've taught us a lot just in our conversations, and you check up on us, telling us to get our car and leave and stop hanging out. So I don't know if anybody else has any other questions right now. You're more than welcome to put them in the chat. One thing that I want to say that's really important is we do have a wonderful police team here in San Leandro. We have a very accessible chief of police. If any of you were interested in getting in touch with him or asking more questions or anything like that, please, you can reach out to me and I can help facilitate conversations with SLPD. Or coordinate conversations with SLPD. I know that there is an event happening at Porky's Pizza. I believe we put it on our calendar, you guys. I'm so sorry. I'm a little bit, can't remember the date, but at Porky's Pizza, they're going to have pizza with the police. And they're inviting different folks from that area of town to come out and talk with them and ask questions and find out just what's going on with the other business owners. And if there's an area it's May 23rd at 5 p.m. So thank you for getting that information for me. May 23rd at 5 p.m. So if there's another way that we could help support any of your businesses by maybe organizing something like that in a different area of a town, let us know, because we're happy to do that. Because I think for our business owners, it's been really frustrating. It's frustrating with the smash and grabs, protecting employees' property, employers' property, the catalytic converters. And if we can help just open up the conversation more and more about best practices, and we're all kind of doing the same thing, perhaps we can send a message out that, San Leandro is really protecting itself. We're here, we're watching out for each other. We've got lots of business groups who are watching out for one another, because I think that that's really important. And also, if you do call the police and it's not an emergency, please remember to always say it's not an emergency, so that they can put you in the right priority. And I'm not sure. I think that's everything that I can say. We try to practice everything that Matt has taught. We are practicing it here at the Chamber of Commerce. We're happy to share kind of his top do's and don'ts and takeaways from this with all of you. And if you want to get in touch with Matt, please do. His information is in the chat, Matt Mayo at criticalinterventioncorps.com. So please give him an email. And if you haven't written this down, always reach out to your Chamber of Commerce and we'll get you in touch with Matt or anybody else that might be able to help you with your situation. So Matt, thank you for doing this. I know
You're very welcome.
We had to reschedule, but thank you for making yourself available. And thank you everybody for joining us. So we'll be in touch with kind of, like I said, some top do's and don'ts and some takeaways. So Matt, thanks again.
All right. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Goodbye, everybody. Have a great day. Bye-bye.